Mark Litvine. Mark, let's see. I don't know if you remember this or not, but we met 3 years ago, and Tim Hilton was doing his presentation and his talk on the brain and the science of addiction. Do you remember? Do you remember that night?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I do.
and we were both there, getting educated and also letting people know some things about resources in the Birmingham area. And that was the very first time that you and I met. And then we've stayed connected over the years. And as we both, as I just identified myself as a person in long-term recovery, besides being us, how are the other ways that you would actually introduce and identify yourself?
So I am a person in long-term recovery, and what that means is since March 1st, 2013, I have lived a life of purpose today, which is to help others and make a difference in my community. I'm a state certified recovery peer support specialist and certified peer specialist on the mental health side as well. And let me just to say, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. All the work that y'all do is incredibly inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks so much for what you guys do. Just thank you for your life, and how you're serving other people. It's so inspiring. So tell us first, I want to get into your story in just a moment because there's so many twists and turns to it. I want you to share about that. But I throw out the name R.O.S. all the time, but for those who may not know what R.O.S. stands for, could you tell us what the acronym is and then a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so R.O.S., the Recovery Organization of Support Specialists, is the first and largest peer-run organization in Alabama. All of our certified peers are individuals in recovery from a substance use disorder. And we started R.O.S to reach the people who fall through the cracks, and all of our services are free of charge. We were in a major substance use epidemic, and a lot of people weren't getting the help that they needed, and we're still in a major, even worse substance use epidemic right now with the onset of COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're there on the front lines every day, reaching the people who fall through the cracks.
That's great.
So we are located at 3616 Fifth Avenue South in Avondale, and we are open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We also have a location in Montgomery and Marshall County. So yes, R.O.S stands for the Recovery Organization of Support Specialists.
Okay, thank you.
And you
And
can
y'all recently expanded, right?
Yes. So we are in a new building in Birmingham, our Recovery Community Center, and it is a safe, supportive, and fun environment for the people we serve to be in. Maybe someone just needs a safe, supportive space to watch football season or share a meal on the holidays, and that's where we come in.
Awesome.
Tell us about your journey in recovery so far. Are you actually from the Birmingham area? Did you grow up in Birmingham?
Yes, so I was raised in Mountain Brook, and I was raised in a very dysfunctional family. Growing up, it could be kind of tough. It could be very hard. And, I can't blame my family or anyone in my family for the way I turned out and me having had a substance use disorder. I had to drop the word blame. And I have a family, a program for the family disease of alcoholism that really helps me with that as well, that I am actively involved in. But I had a good family, and I was raised Jewish, and I never had a relationship with God. I didn't know, it almost got to the point where I was scared to call myself an atheist because I didn't know what would happen. And, even though I was raised Jewish and bar mitzvah and all of that, I didn't find God until I came into recovery later on. And I'll get to the relationship I have with my higher power today, which he is everything. And, but, I was raised a fat kid. I never felt like I fit in. I wanted to be liked by everyone. And I lost all the weight by senior year of high school. And I got introduced to substances. And, I always wanted to fit in. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. And I remember when I took that first drink, I felt like I could finally be the life of the party, talk to everyone, and all of this. And I barely graduated high school because that whole summer I was drinking, and I started working in the restaurant industry and discovering other substances as well. And I had this great idea that I was going to go to college and become a history professor and get tenure, never have to get fired, because I always had some great plan. And I remember, the first time I went to a party in college and did a keg stand and all of this, and I started missing more and more classes. I started hanging out with people that weren't really focused on college and, smoking marijuana, all this stuff. And I remember I started working in the restaurant industry, and I started taking all kinds of painkillers and opioids and things like that. And, you know, I remember it came time to move back home, and it was just going to be the end of the world if I moved back home. So I lived with some people in Birmingham, and within 3 months, they got so sick. I would use you and use you until I couldn't use you anymore. And they got so sick of me that they packed up all my stuff and put it on my parents' front lawn and said, "See you later." And around this time of my life, I had just turned the age of 22, and I had a falling out with some people. And this is where my mental health diagnosis comes in. I do have a mental health diagnosis. I'm a huge mental health advocate today, and I get a shot once a month of 156 milligram Invega Sustaina. And I'm able to live a great life because of that shot. But around the age of 22, I woke up one morning convinced that all this stuff was real and that I had to go through this sort of game to make this thing happen in my life. And for 5 years of my life, it was a very dark and hopeless time. I didn't know what wasn't real, and I didn't know what was real. And I thought everyone was talking about me. I had developed an eating disorder during this time. I would do all this extreme working out, which I have a crack in my lowest disc today because of that. But I was absolutely miserable, and thought songs were about me. And I was drinking and self-medicating with drugs and alcohol because I didn't want to feel the effects of my mental health diagnosis. And let me just say, it's only by God's grace that I am even alive today, and that I am blessed to be in recovery to be able to help others, because I put myself in some situations living that lifestyle where my life could have ended like that. And honestly, I didn't care that my life was going to end, but God saw fit for me to end up in recovery so that I could help others today. And I'm very grateful for that. And
Well, we're so glad you're involved in the community in so many ways. One question, I know part of your story was that for many years, the mental health issues were so hidden and clouded, at least in part because of the heavy substance abuse, right? The substance use disorder, whether it was marijuana or opiates or alcohol or in combination, was kind of hiding that, or at least keeping you from dealing with it. Was there a was there a crucial turning point for you as far as the mental health issue that then allowed you to do recovery, or was it the other way around?
I was in and out of the psych ward. I was in and out of jail. It got to the point where I couldn't live at home. And I developed, I do recovery hip hop today, but for many years I was living that lifestyle, and it was very destructive for me today. But today it's a very inspiring thing. But it all ended in a culmination where I was in my apartment in Vestavia thinking I was being followed. And I did something acting out on my mental health diagnosis. And I ended up for Jefferson County Jail for 9 months with 2 felonies, looking at 3 years of prison. And the DA didn't believe I was mentally ill. And what I discovered was the worst of the mental health system. I was without medication for 6 months, acting out in jail. I would get jumped. I would get beat up. My parents would come see me. I'd have black eyes and split lips. I came in contact with diseases I no longer have today by the grace of God. And the turning point for me was a man named Jimmy Walsh. He's a big spokesperson for NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. But he came, and of course, the first time I saw him, I fired him and all this. I didn't this game, and he had me court ordered into a hospital called Taylor Hardin, and a lot of people that go to Taylor Hardin never leave, and it's a hospital in Tuscaloosa for forensic cases. And I left after a month, and I went back, and I was court ordered into, and I was on the medication. I started out by taking Haldol, and I was sleeping every day, but they dismissed my felonies and they court ordered me into the Birmingham Fellowship House. And let me just say about the Birmingham Fellowship House, I've been a volunteer there for several years, and they loved me until I could love myself. The Birmingham Fellowship House and the people there absolutely saved my life. I had peers there that taught me how to live this way of life. But the courts let me go on December 26, 2012, and I made it to the Fellowship House, and my eating disorder ended the night of I got there. I started eating all this food. Now that I was on the right medication, I no longer cared about my weight anymore, because I was 40 pounds underweight. And I remember going to Chicago in 2009 and not eating any of the deep dish pizza, any of the food, thinking the whole town was talking about me. It was miserable. And my parents didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't know about mental health. And, but Mr. Walsh, when he picked me up that day, he said, just remember to always take your medication. You're going to have good days and bad days, but as long as you don't give up, that things can get better. Just never stop fighting for your mental health and putting it above everything else. And
so even today, if I remember right, you also work a good bit with NAMI. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have spoken at 2 NAMI mental health summits in Montgomery in front of state legislatures and our state commissioner, and told my story with the Montgomery Sheriff's Department, their state legislatures. And so I have done some work with NAMI as well. I've spoken at some NAMI support groups, and I'm a big mental health advocate today. No one should have to go through what I went through as far as the mental health system is concerned. And that's why I love being a peer today, because my story is my greatest tool. And there's going to be someone walking through that door who's been through the exact same thing I've been through, and I can use the power of my story to help them get through it.
Mark, what's your official diagnosis?
I'm schizoaffective.
Okay. And so for folks that may not be real familiar with mental health diagnosis, or may even not be familiar with NAMI at all, there's a pretty broad range of kind of what you're describing that people go through. And I think the percentages, the vast majority of those folks at one time or another in their life are more likely to struggle with substance use. Is that correct?
Yeah. I self-medicated for many years, and the secret ingredient to my mental health today is I get my shot. I take medication at night. I see a therapist, and I get plenty of sleep. Sleep is the secret ingredient to my mental health today. But for many years, I didn't want to take my medication because of the eating disorder, and my parents didn't know what was wrong with me. And the only one who would take me in at the time was my grandmother. Of course, she got to see me get sober and heard me tell my story at a young people's conference. in 2016, which was a really amazing and powerful thing. And, the fellowship house introduced me to my pathway to recovery. And everything I have today is by the grace of an infinite power, infinite love creator in my pathway to recovery. And without that, I wouldn't have the life that I have today. I had a lot of shame and guilt and remorse when I came in. I can't believe I did that. That's so embarrassing. How could I be so stupid? Because when I got on the right medication at Taylor Hardin, all that stuff cleared up within 2 weeks. And I realized all this stuff, none of it was real. And this old timer, she said, why don't you come speak at this work release center and tell your story with me? And I had 3 months. I said, I don't have a story. She said, everyone has a story. And I told my accountability partner that I was uncomfortable. And he said, well, when you're uncomfortable, you're growing. It means God's teaching you something. And she picked me up on a Wednesday night at the Fellowship House Apartments. And she talked about carrying the message in my pathway to recovery. And she promised me when I walked out of that work release center that night that I would get a spiritual intoxication. And she was right. All that shame and guilt, remorse had melted away. And that's when I realized like something had changed in me that night. If I wanted to keep it, I needed to give it away. And yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So my guess is that in your work, just as a recovering person, but also officially for R.O.S. or any of the organizations you're with, you're often running into situations where people are struggling with substance use disorder and nobody has yet diagnosed or nobody's been able to see that there may be another co-occurring disorder underneath this that may be driving it. Is that something you run into on a regular basis?
Well, we run into a lot of co-occurring people who are co-occurring. And luckily, I do a co-occurring support group every Friday night at R.O.S., which is a hybrid. It's in person and on Zoom, which can be found on our Facebook page. But a lot of people just self-medicate. They do have a substance use disorder, and they just self-medicate because they don't want to feel the effects of their mental health diagnosis. And we run into that a lot. But, speaking of R.O.S., I became a volunteer at the Birmingham Fellowship House. I went to Katie Addett, the clinical director there, and I said, I want to stay on the front lines of this thing if I'm going to stay sober. And I started leading a mentor group, and I started putting together orientation packets. And I ended up being in the first class of state certified recovery peer support specialists in March 2016 at Lake Gunnersville. And our trainer, Pam, she said, we need a peer-run organization. We are in a major opioid epidemic, methamphetamine epidemic, and people aren't getting the help that they so desperately need. And me and some other amazing people got together and we started coming up with our bylaws. We started meeting, and eventually we got the funding through the Alabama Department of Mental Health for our first recovery community center in July 2017. And now we're in our third building. Our outreach program started in Walker County, where the opioid epidemic had the most deaths per population, and we treated it like the CDC treats a flu outbreak. And of course, God bless Julie, because she just did such amazing work there. And we've got our statewide 24/7 helpline, which started 3 years ago. And we continue to expand and grow. And, I also got to get involved in my pathway to recovery and continuing to be of service and finding an organization for the family disease of alcoholism that really helped me along my path as well. And putting together a young people's conference for young people in my pathway to recovery and being involved in that. And honestly, I've gotten to do some things in my recovery that I would have never thought possible. If you had told me I'd be living the life that I live today, I would have never believed it. But what God has in store for me is better than anything I could imagine. I got to go back to Chicago in 2017 for an international young people conference with my best friend in recovery. And I ate all the deep dish pizza pie. I saw my reflection in the bean in Millennium Park and
Yeah.
realized, I know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that. We sometimes those of us that were so far off the path for so long, and recovery years can actually begin to take us back through some of those places where we weren't present and we were acting out, and then we get to re-experience them in a redemptive way. So I love hearing about that, especially about the pizza, by the way. So. Uh,
We are a free service. All of our services are free of charge. I am the director of marketing for R.O.S.S. I always have been. And I'm one of the people that was there in the beginning, along with some really amazing people. Everyone at R.O.S.S is in recovery. We know what it's like to live with a substance use disorder, and all of our services are free of charge. We have 3 recovery community centers, one in Birmingham, Montgomery, Marshall County, the first statewide 24/7 helpline, and our R.O.S.S outreach program in 43 counties across Alabama, as well as a mentorship program. R.O.S.S is a safe, supportive, and fun environment for the people that we serve to be in. At R.O.S.S Birmingham, we do have DHR visits and reconnecting children with their families. There's also R.O.S.S Montgomery and R.O.S.S Marshall County. We have a computer lab. Individuals can fill out online job applications, help to build their resume. We have a meditation room. We have support groups every day of the week. There's our information on R.O.S.S Birmingham. We're located at 3616 Fifth Avenue South. We're open 7 days a week. Our R.O.S.S 24/7 helpline is 844-307-1760. All calls are confidential. It is the resource hub. You can call it any time of day or night and get connected to a free service. They will connect you to an outreach worker to help them navigate the substance use disorder system of care. It's great for family members and friends. Sometimes someone just needs someone in recovery to talk to. Addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. That number could save someone's life, so please write it down at 844-307-1760. You will receive contact information for recovery resources, including the treatment provider in one's area, as well as support group shelters and anything else requested. Our outreach program is in 43 counties across Alabama. We stay with the people we serve every step of the way. They will transport them. They will take them to get an assessment. They will follow up with them and stay with them literally every step of the way. And we have R.O.S.S, C.R.S.S, and OTP clinics across Alabama providing peer support services to individuals in medically assisted recovery. There's our outreach right there. We have a mentorship program, which is a 12-week program as well. So the people that we serve can one day become peers. We're working with Project Freedom to ensure that our life-saving resources are provided to first responders. We have a federal R.C.S brief grant that funds our mentorship program. We are working with expectant mothers through the statewide opioid response grant. Obviously, an expectant mother with a substance use disorder is facing a lot of challenges in the state of Alabama, and we are there to help them meet the challenges they face together. We also work with veterans as well. And of course, you can call the helpline on that for more information. We have a Bureau of Justice grant. We're working with individuals who have been incarcerated, finding reentry into their communities, which connects them to our R.O.S.S outreach and helps them with needing assessments. And there's the Bureau of Justice right there. We have a hospital grant. We're working with Medicaid individuals with 2 HCHNs, and our federal block grant from the Alabama Department of Mental Health. And we had a campaign with the Alabama Department of Mental Health to quit tianeptine with the Alabama Department of Mental Health and Public Health this year. And of course, you can call the helpline. It is the hub for, and it is a life-saving resource. Everything that we do is a life-saving resource.
Can you talk a little bit more about the problem with the tianeptine?
Yes. So Tiana is a huge gas station drug, and they tried to outlaw it, I believe, in the state of Alabama, and I think the company sued. But the problem is there's a lot of synthetic drugs in gas stations that are just causing people to have a recurrence of use. They're causing people to go back to substances. And what we are trying to do, if you know anyone that's struggling with any kind of substance use disorder, please call the R.O.S. 24/7 helpline at 844-307-1760. You can visit us at rossforyou.org. We have a lot of news interviews. We just did one with NBC 13 in Birmingham over the holidays. You can visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ROSSBHM for us. And you can email our 24/7 helpline at helplineforyou.al@gmail.com.
I don't think that, I think the average person out there is not aware of the problem that some of these so-called gas station over-the-counter things like Tiana and others are causing, not just necessarily with addiction, but with some mental health disorders.
Yeah. That kind of stuff. I know for me, substances, drugs and alcohol, yes, Phenibut, that's definitely also an issue. I see in the chat. Drugs and alcohol made my mental health diagnosis 10 times worse. And I was someone who couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I thought I was this horrible person. And what I realized today is that, I wasn't a bad person trying to get good. I was a sick person trying to get well. And, I serve on a lot of committees today. I serve on the statewide opioid task force. I serve on an ethical committee as well. And I'm a huge recovery advocate today. I identify myself as a person in long-term recovery in the public eye whenever I'm meeting with stakeholders, because there is still a huge stigma when it comes to substance use disorder. And we change the language so we change how people see us. There's a really amazing Native American man, Don Coyhe, but he said, if you want to love something, you call it a flower. If you want to kill something, you call it a weed. And while I may identify myself as something else in my pathway to recovery, when I am in the public eye, I'm a person in long-term recovery, because I am so much more today than my diagnosis, than my disease. I am making a difference in my community. And so I did want to touch on that.
No, that's great. That's awesome. In fact, so you mentioned a little earlier that one of the kind of very practical things you guys do is host a group. I think you said on Fridays for folks that are struggling with substance use disorder, but also have a co-occurring diagnosis or are wondering if they do. So is that group open to anyone? If so, how would they join?
Yes, so visit our Facebook page. It'll be posted on Friday, but it's virtual. It's also hybrid as well. I do about 4 virtual support groups a week. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of our support has gone virtual, but you can come to R.O.S. in person as well. We also have an LGBTQ plus support group. We have a men's support group, a women's support group, a veteran support group, and we have support groups every day of the week. So, but that co-occurring group is every Friday at 6 o'clock. I will post the information on our Facebook page on Friday. And, what we do as peers is we are the people we serve, and we love people to a better life, because we know what it's like to have been through that struggle, and we use our stories to help others. Everything that we do at R.O.S. is recovery support, recovery supportive services. We are all in recovery, and we've reached a lot of people.
Yeah, y'all have done a tremendous amount of work in just 3.5 years. We lost the feed a little while ago. I hope people saw. Were you able to get up the pictures of the Montgomery location? Yes. in Marshall County? Okay, because those are actual physical locations as well, not just the first one here in Birmingham that y'all have now opened as well. And I think you got to talk to them about the 24/7 hotline. Is that
Yes?
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, the helpline, and that's any time of day or night. Y'all, please write that number down. It's great for family members and friends of anyone impacted by a substance use disorder. So, yeah.
Okay. And before we close in just a few minutes, we'll put that number back up on the screen. We've also got a question about, are you aware of which programs or what type of resources are you aware of for folks under 18 for so-called adolescent programs? How do you refer people on those types of things? Where do you either send them to or suggest that they look?
So I would call the R.O.S. 24/7 helpline. Here, let me put it in the chat at 844-307-1760. And they will connect you to free services. They are all state certified agencies, state funded agencies. But I know there's there's a lot of adolescent organizations in Alabama, and the helpline can refer you to that. And as far as ones, I know of there's some really good ones out there. But yeah, call the helpline. It's 844-30. Here, let me.
Yeah.
And let me put the website.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's the thing, the head of the Fellowship House taught me a long time ago when I was first becoming a peer that we live lives of purpose today. And that makes all the difference in the world. All those dark things that I was so ashamed of in my past, that's what's going to help someone today going through the exact same thing. Today, my dark past is the greatest thing about me because I'm able to use that to help others. And the purpose that my life is driven by today is just amazing. I've gotten to do some awesome things in our own community. I've interviewed Dr. Mark Wilson, our Jefferson County Chief Health Officer. I've interviewed Judge Maria Fortune, our Jefferson County Drug Court Judge. And of course, all of those interviews are on our Facebook page. We've got a public service announcement right now on WBRC that airs on Saturday mornings for our services. So, if I do my part for my recovery, God's going to take care of the rest. And I've been through some things in my recovery, some tough times as well, but I was able to stay in recovery through all of that. And just the fact that I do have a way to treat my mental health diagnosis today is one of the greatest gifts of my recovery. But it's also the relationship I have with my family today. I do have a little rescue dog that I rescue from the Greater Birmingham Humane Society. And she's a mess, but she has changed my life. And, I took my mom out for her 66th birthday a few months ago, even in pandemic. And seeing that candle and her dessert, that's one of the moments in my recovery, and seeing the look on her face, that's the kind of stuff I don't forget. And that's what makes my recovery so worthwhile today, is all of that. Because I have a great relationship with my family. I have a relationship with several, organizations in the community, several leaders in the community. And, that same old timer that took me to that work release center promised me that this thing gets gooder and gooder. And she didn't say better and better. She said gooder and gooder. And it really does.
Well, in the South, it is gooder and gooder, right? Well, we're going to close in just a minute, but I want to see if there's anything of that's coming up in the recovery community, any announcements or anything, maybe particular to R.O.S., or just some things about right now, especially given COVID and the pandemic and all that we're going through, that you may know of that may be something that people want to kind of hear about coming up.
So we are open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. at 3616 Fifth Avenue South. Come check us out. We are practicing COVID-19 safety precautions and maintaining safe social distancing guidelines. But check us out, y'all, because every single holiday, we had a trunk or treat in the parking lot on Halloween. We had a big Christmas dinner on Christmas Day. We had a New Year's Day dinner. Maybe someone just needs a place to come for the holidays, and they can come and share a meal. And we are a safe, supportive, and fun environment for the people that we serve to be in. And
That's
oh
great.
yes, I see in the chat, free naloxone via the Jefferson County Department of Health website. So yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. They're doing trainings virtually now, is that right?
Yes, so we actually recently just had one at R.O.S.S, but the naloxone trainings are virtually. You can sign up on the Jefferson County Department of Health website. And Kayla L. raised her hand.
Okay, let's see. I think we may have gotten her question, but if not, if she'll put another one in. So when we say naloxone training, a lot of people know it by the name Narcan, right? And okay, right. Yeah, if y'all want to put the website on there, I see them bringing in Candace. Yeah, if you're there and can put the website up, that would be fantastic, because with COVID, a lot of the trainings have had to shift to virtual, but it's amazing how effective it is, even virtually. And then you can get access to a naloxone or a Narcan kit. And as we know, those are saving more and more people's lives, especially with this year of shutdown, when the overdose rate has shot up again.
Yeah, that's something I'm working with right now. We're working with different organizations to make sure that naloxone gets in other counties as well. And so we're working on that right now. And, it's a huge life-saving resource. The thing is, I will say this, and I say this every time I talk, but with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are in a major substance use epidemic. The quarantine brought on isolation and self-medicating with drugs, and the overdose rate has gone up. So whatever you can do to get as much Narcan or naloxone as you can, it's all about, we never know what kind of life that we have an opportunity to save. And, if we can help one more person get into recovery, I always tell myself, if I can just reach at least one person, I've done my job. Yeah. And, so please get the Narcan, get the naloxone, get the training, be trained in helping all of us, because, that's what we do at R.O.S.S. We help our people, and we love people to a better life.
Yeah. So I see where Cal's question was. She's been trained before, but her kit has expired. And so she was just asking if she needs to go through the training again. I don't know how your organization handles that, but that was her question.
Sarah Estenoble just came to our R.O.S.S location. She can go online and request a replacement, and she can also go to the Jefferson County Department of Mental Health and request a new kit. You do not have to be trained again. So yeah, Sarah just answered that about a month ago for us.
Fantastic. That's perfect. Thanks to Candace for putting the website in the chat if people are interested in that, but we'll also post it at APC. Before we close, just a note to you folks that coming up on February 1st, Addiction Prevention Coalition, one of their volunteers and board members, Lauren Sisler, is going to be doing a virtual event, talking a little bit about what Mark shared today about trying to reduce or erase the stigma when it comes to substance use disorder in families. So be looking for more information on that. Also, we had a lot of volunteer participation over the holidays to do handwritten encouragement notes to folks in recovery. During the holidays, we were able to get that out to hundreds and hundreds of people in the Birmingham and Central Alabama area that otherwise may not have had any contact during the holidays. And Addiction Prevention Coalition is going to do that again, this time for Valentine's Day. So it's a marvelous volunteer opportunity, especially even if you're still maybe restricted due to COVID and can't get out, we can help you do that and join. Look to the Facebook page for the Addiction Prevention Coalition for more information, and that'll be posted out there. And then we will also post our time with Mark in the archive on at APC as well, so you can get to it. And all of the information that we've been putting out today will be both in this recording, but also on the APC website as well. And Mark has just listed for us the local location down there in Avondale for R.O.S.S. Mark, thank you, my friend. Thanks for what you do. Love your heart for people and the practical ways that you guys are serving all of the different communities around the state of Alabama. And thanks so much for being here today, and let's do lunch again soon.
Thank you, Art. It's incredibly inspiring for y'all and the work that y'all do out in the community to help others and make a difference as well. It's very inspiring. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's definitely an honor and a privilege.
Thanks, Mark. Talk to you soon. Goodbye, everybody.